beautiful city of Tehran, where geopolitical tectonic shifts are being witnessed as we speak. And anything that happens here impacts not just the region, but the world. President Trump, in his State of the Union address, put Iran right back at the center of America's national security strategy. And Prime Minister Netanyahu is pushing hard. This at a time when our Prime Minister Modi is visiting Israel. And India today is yet again in the heart of where news is being made and is being broken. We're in conversation with the Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi. Thank you so much, Minister, sir, for joining us here in this conversation. Donald Trump has put Iran on notice yet again. What's your reaction? Is Iran prepared?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. On your question, of course we are prepared. We are fully prepared for both options. War, God forbid, and peace. As you know, I'm going to Geneva this afternoon in order to have the third round of our talks with the U.S. team. And we have made some progress last time. We were able to find some sort of understandings. And I think based on those understandings, we can build something in the form of an agreement, a deal. I think a fair, balanced, and equitable deal is achievable, and we can do it. Of course, our armed forces are prepared to do their job, and we know how to defend ourselves, and this is what we did last time. And we have learned lots of lessons from the last war, so we are even more prepared. And that means, by the way, that the aim is to prevent a war. When you are prepared for a war, you can prevent it. Otherwise, you are inviting it to your home. So we are fully prepared, not because we want war, because we want to prevent the war. I'm a man of diplomacy. I have to talk about my own job. And I think the way we are going to is the best possible way to resolve this problem. There is no military option for Iran's peaceful nuclear program. If there is any concern, if there is any question, if there is any ambiguity, we are ready to address. We are ready to answer questions. We are ready to remove concerns, but we are not ready to give up our right for peaceful use of nuclear technology. This is what we demand. So I believe that tomorrow in Geneva, there is every possibility to come to an agreed solution which is fair and balanced.
You believe there's going to be an agreement, or are you just hopeful there's going to be an agreement?
Well, I'm hopeful, of course, but I think it is achievable. Of course, it depends on the other side's determination. To be honest with you, we are not fully convinced that they have a real determination to do that. Why? Because we have a bitter experience of the last time. We were negotiating last June when Israel attacked us, and then the US joined that attack. So that memory is still fresh for us. The wounds of that aggression is still alive in our minds. So we cannot forget that once we negotiating with the US, and then they decided to attack us. This time we are obviously more careful, and we have concern. But if there is a genuine, if there is a real serious determination in their side to come to a conclusion, I believe it is achievable.
Minister Araghchi, you're saying that you're hopeful and you see intent, not as much, but you're dealing with a US president who is unlike any other in the past. Look at the statement and please react to the statement, his State of the Union address. He has very clearly said, and please tell me where that credibility of the information really comes from, when he says that President has claimed that Iran is developing missiles that can reach America, and that the negotiations and the terms and conditions are no enrichment at all. So where does the claim of the missiles really come from then?
Well, President Trump has always complained about fake news. So I think now it is himself the victim of fake news, unfortunately. We are not developing, long-range missiles, and we have limited the range of our missiles below 2,000 kilometers intentionally by ourselves because we don't want anyone. We don't want it to be like a global threat. This is only to defend ourselves. Our missiles has, defense nature. They are only to build deterrence and to help us defend ourselves, exactly as they did in the last June's war. We didn't initiate that war. It was Israelis and then Americans. We only defended ourselves. For them, that was an illegal act of aggression. For us, it was a legitimate act of self-defense. And we did it by our missiles. So our missiles is our reliable means of defense, and we have no intention to extend their range. So this is not the fact. It was also mentioned the number of killings in Iran, another fake news. We have already published the name of those of the victims of the recent terrorist operation.
He said 32,000.
3,100.
32,000.
Yeah, he mentioned 32,000. But the list includes only 3,117 victims, which is very unfortunate. And we have published the names, and we have said publicly that if anybody thinks that the names are more than this, so please give us the evidence. Please add only one more name to this list. So there has been no names added to that so far. So the number 32,000 is absolutely wrong. So I hope that we establish our understanding based on real facts. And the fact is Iran is not developing nuclear weapons. We have always said, and I would like to reaffirm, that we have no intention to go for nuclear weapons. And we have no intention to go for long-range missiles. And we have, of course, the intention and determination to, establish our rights and to practice our rights for peaceful use of nuclear technology.
But isn't enrichment a deal breaker? You're going into Geneva, you're saying you want it for peaceful purposes, but enrichment is a deal breaker, sir.
Well, I didn't hear the President say anything about enrichment in State of the Union speech. Enrichment, yes, is a very serious question. And we have dealt with that in the past two rounds of our discussion. And I believe that still there is the possibility to conclude a deal. Of course, I'm not going to negotiate through this panel, but I believe a deal is possible.
I'd like to be a fly on the wall, but I'm not that. So might as well tell us, what is fair and equitable to you? How do you see fair and equitable? What should Iran be allowed and what should America get?
Well, what we want is only our right, to practice our right. We are a committed member of NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty, and we have accepted not to have nuclear weapons, but at the same time we have full rights to use nuclear technology for peaceful purposes. And we want to practice that right. If there is any question, as I said, if there is any concern, we are ready to address. So we can build confidence on our nuclear program. And in return, we expect sanctions being terminated. So this is a fair deal, that we build confidence, we make sure that our program is peaceful and would remain peaceful forever. At the same time, sanctions should be lifted and our right for peaceful use of nuclear technology be respected.
What do you think is the motivation that brings Trump to a position where he's so anti-Iran? Where does this come from? Does it stem from Israel, the ally?
Well, it's a long story, I have to say. Everything began from the Islamic Revolution in Iran. I think Americans failed to understand why it happened. So they started, hostility against that. So in the past 47 years, we have been the subject or the victim of their hostility against us. And they have tried everything. They tried coups several times. They helped Saddam Hussein to impose an 8-year war against us. Last year, another war, all kinds of sanctions, maximum pressures policy, and they failed. All of them, they failed. Why? Because they have no, real information about Iran and Iranian people. And they are fed with, misinformation campaign, mostly by, Israeli lobbies. So I believe that the only solution to talk is to talk with the Iranian people with the language of respect. And if they try that language, they will see the result, that we would also talk with them with the same language. But if they want to use pressure, language of force, then the result is as we see. So let's hope that we can change the approaches and come to a better way of dealing with each other.
I know you have a huge responsibility on your shoulders. It's that of peace of the entire region and the world today. But if talks fail in Geneva, there are military options, and the Supreme Leader is also one of the targets. That's absolutely clear in the messaging from Washington.
Well, military option, yes. They have built a huge military presence around us. If the idea is to threaten us, so we, capitulate, that is not going to happen. It is for sure. We have proved it last time in the war when Israel attacked us. Perhaps you remember in the third day of war, there was a tweet, unconditional surrender. But it didn't happen. And after 12 days, they asked for unconditional ceasefire. And we accepted because it was unconditional. If you repeat a failed experience, you won't get any better result, especially since we are more prepared than previous time, as I said before. So there would be no victory for anybody. It would be a devastating war. And since the Americans' bases are scattered in different places in the region, then unfortunately perhaps the whole region would be engaged and would be involved. So it is a terrible scenario. I don't even want to talk about that.
I was just coming to that, the fact that you're talking about Qatar, Saudi, UAE, there are bases there, but they have actually come out and said that they will not allow their land, air, or water to be used. Nobody wants a war over here, but it does seem like President Trump is not looking at it through the prism of their allies in the Middle East, more so through the prism of Netanyahu in Israel.
Well, I appreciate the positions taken by all countries of the region. You mean our Arab friends and others in our region who has expressed very clearly that they are against war and they don't want it to happen. Yes, there are American bases in the territory of some of them. They have made sure that they won't let their territory, their waters, their airspace would be used against Iran. To some extent, I don't know how much that can be controlled. So we are grateful for their positions. I hope that would remain the case. But if, God forbid, the US decides to attack us, then their bases in the region would be a legitimate targets. and they are the U.S. bases. We consider them as U.S. bases, not the territory of our neighbors or anybody in the country. Like last time that we had no way but to attack the American base in Qatar, I immediately called my dear brother, the Foreign Minister of Qatar. Even I called him before the attack, and I informed him. And I told him that, please, my brother, please be informed. Please know that this is not an attack against Qatar. It is an attack against the U.S. base, which is unfortunately in Qatar.
So you informed them in advance? We
informed them in advance. And later on, we explained, and we tried to make sure the understanding that this is not an attack against our brotherly country of Qatar. But there is only one entity in this region who wants war, and that is Israel. It's the fact that Israel is trying to drag the United States into war with Iran. They cannot do it by themselves. They tried it and they failed, and they asked the U.S. to help them. And now I believe that this is an Israeli plot to drag the United States into war in this region.
Would you make a distinction between Israel and Netanyahu?
For the time being, no. He is the Prime Minister of Israel. He is the man who decides for Israel. So this is a disastrous plan by Israelis. They want to perhaps establish their hegemony to the region, which is not going to happen. But we are seeing, there are many indications that it is them who are trying to drag President Trump to war with Iran, which would be very unfortunate against the Americans' interests if they do that.
Respectfully, sir, our Prime Minister is in Israel. How do you see, what's the reading of Iran in how India balances its ties with Israel as also with Iran, which is a critical partner?
Well, to be honest with you, it is very unfortunate. Now, Israel is the one who has destroyed the whole Gaza. 75,000 people are killed, and this is not a claim, this is a fact confirmed by almost all international organizations who are dealing with the question in Gaza. 70,000 people. It is a genocide. So obviously we don't see it appropriate to deal with a genocidal regime. Of course, it is up to our friends in India to decide for themselves. But I hope that while Prime Minister Modi is there, he can address also the question of Palestinians and their right for self-determination.
And maybe remind the world that it's not an era of war, that war should not be the solution?
Well, of course, I'm sure that he will do that. We have always had a very good relation with India. India is a friend to Iran, and our relation is history, old. And we have always enjoyed having a good bilateral economic relation, social relations, cultural relations, and political relations. And we want it to continue as such. I have good contact with my colleague, Minister Jaishankar, and we always exchange our views, and we have very good personal relations. So I wish Iran, and I'm confident that Iran and India can continue their good, friendly relations. And I hope that India, play its positive and constructive role to establish peace and stability in our region, and to prevent further crimes and killings by Israelis against Palestinians.
Minister Araghchi, there is also, you could call it accusation or reality of support from Iran for Hezbollah, for the Houthis, for the Iraqi militias, and Hamas. Do you consider them terrorists or freedom fighters?
We consider them as groups who are fighting for a just cause. Their lands are under occupation, and they have every right to fight with occupiers. They are fighting for a just cause, and we support them. This is not an accusation. This is a reality. Those are not our proxies, for sure, but they are independent groups or organizations or movements that we support because they are fighting for the right things, for the right cause. This is the fact. They are independent groups. They decide by themselves and they act by themselves, as Hamas did it in 7th of October. He didn't even consult with us.
What's your position on that? Because that changed the entire dynamics of the region. Today we are seeing more deaths maybe because of that attack. So what's Iran's position on October 7th?
You know, you have to consider the root causes of that. You know, we have a bigger reality, and that is a whole nation of Palestinians being under occupation for more than 80 years. There are killings and destruction of their homes and their cities. There are refugees all around the world in neighboring countries. And they have not stopped fighting for their right, for their land. So you have to consider the root causes of that and then decide whether that one single act was good or bad. The fact is, Palestinians have every right to have their own homelands and to enjoy the right of self-determination. And unless they are not given that right, this conflict would continue. This is a fact. Just look, in the past 80 years, there has been, I think, more than 150 or 60 or maybe 200 different plans to resolve this problem. None of them worked because all of them lacked the element of justice for Palestinians. So unless there is justice for Palestinian people, there will be no peace. This is a fact.
Is there disappointment in the international community, the Arab world, in how they have fought for the cause of Palestine or not?
Well, of course, you know, it is disappointing because the reality is what we see now on the ground. So I hope that, the international community is now paying attention. Now more than 170 countries have already recognized the state of Palestine. But this is not enough, because when you ask that, okay, you have recognized the state of Palestine, but where is this state? Only on the paper, not on the ground, not for the people. So unless these realities are changed, we cannot expect peace. Even if you suppress Palestinians on a daily basis, if you kill them on a daily basis, at the end there is no peace, because peace would come only if justice is established.
Okay. I have to ask you these questions on the domestic front as well, because you spoke about 32,000 people encountering that, saying about a little over 3,000 have been killed in the protests. But the protests are important. How is the administration looking at the protests itself, the need for reform? Should there be reform?
I didn't say that more than 3,000 people were killed in protests.
Died.
No. They killed on a terrorist operation. I used the word terrorist operation. And let me to explain. Yes, we had protests. From 28th December to 7th January, for 10 days, we had legal protests in the streets, gatherings and demonstrations. And it was very well tolerated because it's the right of the people to express their protests in the streets. And that is mentioned in our Constitution, is one of the principles of our Constitution. The government was even engaged with the leaders of those protests. They invited to the cabinet. I was there myself. There was a dialogue how to resolve the problem, how to, address their complaints. And nobody was killed on those 10 days. But on 8th of January, we faced with a completely new phenomenon. Some elements came into this protests among protesters and demonstrators with guns. And they started shooting at our police forces. And when police forces are, shooted and killed, of course they have to react. And then we found out that there are instructions coming from outside. It's a very well planned.
Outside where?
From Israel. Very well planned to perhaps conduct, something like a coup in Iran. So there were hundreds of, elements armed who came to the streets all of a sudden in most of the Iranian cities with a similar, way of acting, and they acted like, Daesh terrorist groups. They beheaded some of police officers. They burned some of them alive, and then they started shooting at people, in a blindly manner. And then it was very strange for us that they are killing even the protesters. Why? Because President Trump had said that if there are killings, I will come to rescue. So the purpose was to increase the number of deaths so they can drag the United States into this question. So we have, their voices, the instructions coming from outside through, these social networks or so, that shoot at police forces. If you don't find them, shoot at ordinary people. If not, shoot at the boys and girls in front of you who are doing protests. So the only reason, the only purpose was to increase the number of deaths. 8th, 9th, and 10th January, we faced with this phenomenon, and we had no way but to crash them. 3,100 and something have been killed. 2,500 of them have been listed by us as martyrs, those who were killed by these terrorist groups, and we have indication, we have proofs, we have,
Is that the kind of penetration Israel has within
Iran?
Iran?
Yes, it was kind of penetration, and there was terrorist elements. You have seen those, stories even in India when terrorist groups penetrated, killed ordinary people, or they did something wrong, and then your police forces had no way but, or your security forces had no way but to crash them or to confront them. That is exactly what happened in Iran. So we have 10 days of peaceful demonstrations and then 3 days of terrorist operation. And for us, these 3 days are the continuation of those 12 days in last June. So that was the continuation of war imposed by Israel on us.
But you've lost a lot of top leadership, ministers, sir. You've lost an assassination. They're no longer plots. They're being assassinated. They were assassinated by Israeli forces. How do you look at the vulnerability of your own security system?
Well, it's a fact that we have to accept that we had this weak point. Now we have overcome that weak point. As I said, we learned lots of lessons from the 12-day war. That was one of our weak points, yes. But, the question is that all those high commanders were immediately replaced. And we were able to start defending ourselves from the same day. So the same night that Israelis attacked us, we started to attack them with missiles. And every day passed, our missiles became more exact and more accurate. And this is why that at day 12, they asked for ceasefire, unconditional ceasefire. I was called by Americans telling me that Israel would stop, you also please stop. And we said, if that is unconditional, okay. Otherwise, we continue our self-defense. Back to our domestic issue, we have to understand that it was a terrorist operation, and I'm sure that when India is facing with a similar terrorist operation, they will do exactly the same.
But what about reforms? is the regime considering reforms at all? Something that can maybe get you out of this international isolation on many counts other than uranium and nuclear. Will the reforms not help?
Well, reform, you have to say what do you exactly mean by reform. President Pezeshkian is himself a reformist, based in different categories of politicians in Iran. And he has done a good job so far. But the main problem is not internal reform. Reform is always needed, of course. Every system needs to be reformed, to be corrected. That is obvious. But our problem is not coming in from inside. It's mostly from outside, by the hostilities of the United States, Israelis, and others. So we have our policy is to confront those, hostilities from outside and defend ourselves and protect our people first.
You started with fake news. I know you're running out of time and you have to go to Geneva for the big talks, but just a few questions before I let you go, sir. You started with fake news, but we also discussed misinformation and disinformation campaign. Now, a lot of international media put out stories about protesters being executed. There would be public executions. Then there's a lot of information about the Supreme Leader, his health, his whereabouts. Will you break that down for us, for our viewers, and tell us exactly what happened when it comes to the protesters or the Supreme Leader?
If there are public executions, so it should be reported by media or through internet. Nowadays nothing can be hid, can be hidden. We have no plan to execute for the time being, of course, because there has been the courts are still going on. I don't know what would be the judgment of the courts at the end, but so far we have not executed anybody, and there is no plan as such right now. Supreme Leader appears in TV and public gatherings every often, and I think everybody has seen him, has listened to his speeches, and he's absolutely fine and healthy.
Is there a succession plan for the Supreme Leader? And will there be a day when there would be maybe a separation between the clergy and the civilian dispensation?
Well, we have a mechanism which is in our constitution. There is an assembly of experts that whenever needed, they will elect a new Supreme Leader for the country, a new leader. Exactly as happened after the demise of the late Ayatollah Khomeini. In less than 24 hours, they elected a new leader. And that would happen whenever needed. So we have no problem of that. I have seen in the in the U.S. media or others that they want to assassinate the leader, these kind of things. But this is a system that everybody would replace in a very well-established mechanism which exists in the system itself, so nothing would happen. Our system is not dependent on individuals. It's a system supported by the people. And you just saw a few days ago in the 47th anniversary of our revolution, a huge number of people in our cities came to the streets in support of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And the number was even bigger than last year, because this year people felt that there are threats, so they have to come and play their role in the streets. So I'm not worried at all. As the top commanders were replaced immediately in the middle of war, and nothing happened, and we were able to continue our self-defense. I'm sure if anything like that be repeated, there is no problem with the system.
Finally, before I let you go, I cannot not ask you about your friends and allies. India, a friend; Russia, China, more than friends, they're allies. In event of a war, in event of troubled region, how do you see and what kind of a role do you see Russia and China play?
When it comes to defending ourselves, we know how to defend ourselves by ourselves. And we have, yes, lots of friends, lots of partners. Russia and China are our strategic partners. But in the case of war, we don't need anybody to defend us. We can do it by ourselves.
Are you a little disappointed that India has not included Chabahar as a project in its budget this year?
Well, I think it's a disappointment for both Iran and India. Chabahar, as once President Modi said, is the golden gate which connects the Indian Ocean area to the Central Asia, the Caucasus, and then to Europe, and vice versa. So that is a very strategic port. And if developed, fully developed, it can play a very important role to connect India from Iran to Central Asia, to the Caucasus, and then to Europe. And that would be the best, I think, transit route. I hope that one day we can witness the full development of this port.
All right.
With our friends in India.
All right. Finally, any message to President Trump, because you're headed to Geneva?
Well, I'm going to meet his team tomorrow in Geneva. So no messages needed.
No messages needed. Only the fact that you need all the wishes and best of luck for the meeting that you're going to hold in Geneva with your American counterparts. It's going to be a very important one that will hold peace not just in the region but in the world. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
I hope so. Thank you indeed. Thank you for having me today.